Welcome to Ask Ernie, your source for practical training and relationship advice for you and your dog. I'm Megan, here to answer the questions that every dog parent wants to know, straight from Ernie's postbag. Today we're answering, how do I get my dog to stop pulling on the lead? Hi everyone, I'm Megan, a dog behavior coach from Walk to Heal. And today on Ask Ernie, I'm going to answer a very common question, which is, how do I get my dog to stop pulling on the lead? Well, this is a really important question for caretakers who often want to crack this, which is understandable because for most of us, we take our dogs out on a lead at least once a day. And if we have a dog that is very forward pulling or constantly bracing, then that's going to create tension and stress and strain for us, right? It can cause tension in our hands and our wrists from constantly gripping that lead. It can create tight shoulders from the pulling back and the bracing. And it can even throw our hips out of misalignment. So it's really important that we can walk with our dog in a way that feels collaborative and joyful. So before we look at how we can get our dog to stop pulling on the lead, I just want to go over a few common tips and tricks that I see on the internet and why they might not be doing the thing that we need them to do. So classic negative reinforcement or obedience training methods suggest that you should put your dog on a collar, and if your dog pulls, then you correct it. And the way that you issue an ethical correction is by flicking your wrist rather than pulling forward or pulling with any momentum with your arm. And the idea there is that just a bit of pressure or discomfort is enough to signal to a dog that if they pull ahead, then they're going to experience discomfort and then they're not going to want to pull. Sure. I don't know about you, but when I'm like feeling stressed or aroused, because that's often what's going on when a dog is pulling and unable to be communicated with. I don't think that a feeling of being choked would probably calm me down. So then we've got this kind of other set of tools, which is more around like positive reinforcement, ignoring the bad, rewarding the good. And the idea there is that if the dog is pulling ahead, the best thing that we can do is stop. And what we're trying to do there is work with the dog's motivator. The dog's motivator is I'm pulling ahead because I want to go somewhere. And I learn with that stop that I don't get the thing that I want. So I'll learn that if I just walk nicely, then I'll get to go to the park. And while in theory that does track in a way, I will say that if we're dealing with arousal on the lead, then a dog isn't really in a place where they are necessarily concerned with motivators, right? They are in a place of arousal that could be from excitement to get to the park or anxiety or overwhelm. But either way, those things are stress responses. Like they mean that the dog is like not focusing, not really like invested in the thing that's motivating them. They're just kind of on autopilot. So what we actually want to do to get our dog to stop pulling on the lead is lower their arousal. That's the goal. It's not about getting them to obey you and be next to you because that's how they know that you're the master. It's not about like working with their dopamine and being like, okay, I'll give you the thing if you just do the thing that I want. It's about how do I help you just chill out a bit on the lead. And, all power to the dogs. Like, I mean, it is stressful to be out in a city in general. And, they're contending with being out in a city with the kind of senses that they have, which we could probably never imagine in terms of sound and smell. And they're also contained, right? They're on a lead. They don't have the ability to move around freely and check out the things that they're curious about or worried about, right? So all of that is quite arousing. And of course, a lot of those things are external factors that we can't necessarily always control for. although of course we can manage the environment in a way and manage our walks in a way that means that they're less exposed to things that trigger them. If you're more curious about management tips, you can just click on this little link down here and download the free meltdown management guide that I have. But anyway, so if our goal is to lower a dog's arousal, well, what can we do then? How do we do that? So I use a technique called balanced lead walking, and that is a Tellington TTouch technique that is all about supporting a dog to be in balance or a relaxed physical posture. Because if a dog is walking with their paws over their feet and they're more in balance and they're in a relaxed physical state, that's going to translate to a relaxed emotional state. That's then going to change their behavior. If they're less stressed, if they're less aroused, they're just not going to behave in that way that we find stressful and arousing. So balanced lead walking is a different approach to lead walking that I wish I had come across in my dog walking years. I was a dog walker for 5.5 years. So I've tried it all. I've tried all the techniques. I've tried all the equipment. And about 6 months before I stopped dog walking, I came across Tellington TTouch. And it's just phenomenal, I would say, that the amount of change that we can see if we shift our technique and our approach and focus on arousal and balance. The thing that I want to leave you with today on how do I get my dog to stop pulling? Don't pull back. So when your dog is pulling, you're going to be in some sort of instinct. And often that instinct, your reactive instinct, just like they're in a reactive state, is to pull back. And if you have someone with you right now and you've got your dog lead, you can do it between the two of you. Someone gets to be the dog, someone gets to be the person, and the dog pulls. And just notice, like, what do you do when the dog pulls? It's going to be quite likely that you pull back. And then ask the dog, what's your only option? It's to keep pulling. This is something that is called the opposition reflex. And to me, it is probably the #1 driver of a dog pulling on the lead. It's the fact that you're pulling back, which, might seem counterintuitive, especially if you've got a dog who's reactive and you're gripping that lead tightly because you don't want them to bark at the dog or the person or the child or the cyclist walking by. Or maybe you've got a scavenger dog and they're just going for the chicken bone for like the 10th time on this walk and you don't want them to eat that chicken bone, which I get it, that makes sense. But the most important thing that you can do to interrupt cycles of pulling or bracing is to stop pulling. And so the technique that I'm going to give you is something called meet and melt. And those techniques are best used with Tellington TTouch equipment. And it is about meeting that pressure. So when the dog pulls and you pull, again, you can do this with someone else, meet it. But then what happens if you just melt into that tension slightly? And you might do that by lifting your hand upward. You might do that by bringing yourself back into balance. So you might have noticed that when you've gone into that opposition reflex state that you actually yourself are no longer in balance. So you have to reset the balance. And if you're doing that with 2 people, look at the change with the person who is the dog. Like, look at how they relax. And you'll see that with your dog too. And I hope that that gives you one grain of hope, one little moment that shows you that lead walking can be different. If you relax, your dog will relax. That doesn't solve pulling all on its own. Meet and melt is one technique out of a different little set of techniques that are about walking in balance. And it's a part of a language, a new language for walking a dog on a lead. But I just want to give you that to try and do that And, maybe you meet and melt and your dog relaxes and then continues to pull, which is normal, but that's because you don't have the other set of tools ready to go. So if you're curious about balanced lead walking and what it can do to transform your relationship with your dog on lead, fill out a consultation form, get in touch, and we can together stop the dog walk dread. In the meantime, you can download my free copy of Meltdown Management, Stop Your Dog's Meltdowns Before They Even Begin, so you can get some tips and advice on how to manage your environment and your surroundings so that way you can lower your dog's arousal in general before you get started learning new skills. Ready to stop the dog walk dread? Subscribe below to get your free copy of Meltdown Management so you can take control of your dog walks